The morning sun sparkled on Lake Monroe as Do-hyun Park turned his silver SUV onto the gravel driveway. His wife Mi-ro sat in the passenger seat, smiling as she looked at their new weekend home. In the back seat, their 14-year-old daughter Han-yul had finally put down her phone, her eyes wide with excitement. "It's even prettier than in the pictures," Mi-ro said, reaching over to squeeze her husband's hand. Do-hyun nodded, feeling proud. After 15 years of working as a software engineer, he had finally been able to buy their dream vacation home. The lake house stood 2 stories tall, with large windows that faced the water. Its dark blue paint looked fresh against the green trees that surrounded it. A wooden dock stretched out into the calm lake, perfect for summer swimming and fishing. Han-yul jumped out of the car as soon as it stopped. "Can I pick my room first?" she called over her shoulder, already running toward the front door. Her parents laughed, remembering how they were just as excited when they first saw the house 2 weeks ago. "Just remember, the one with the lake view is ours," Do-hyun called after her. He opened the trunk, which was packed with boxes of supplies for their first weekend stay. Mi-ro grabbed 2 bags of groceries and headed inside. As Do-hyun lifted out a heavy box of kitchen items, he felt eyes on him. Looking up, he noticed a man standing at the edge of the neighboring property. The man, who looked to be in his 60s, wore dirty jeans and a faded red baseball cap. He was staring directly at Do-hyun, his face twisted in an unfriendly frown. Do-hyun raised his hand in a friendly wave. "Good morning. I'm Do-hyun Park, your new neighbor." The man, Robert Thatcher, according to the real estate agent, didn't wave back. Instead, he spat on the ground and turned away, walking back to his house. Do-hyun's smile faded, but he tried not to let it bother him. Some people just weren't friendly, he told himself. Inside the house, Han-yul was running up and down the stairs, exploring every room. Her footsteps echoed through the empty spaces that would soon be filled with furniture and family memories. Mi-ro was in the kitchen, putting away food in the new refrigerator they had delivered last week. "This kitchen is perfect," Mi-ro said when Do-hyun brought in the box. "I can't wait to cook dinner while watching the sunset over the lake." She started unpacking plates and bowls, arranging them in the cabinets. Do-hyun hugged her from behind. "Remember when we first came to America? We could barely afford our tiny apartment. Now look at us. We have a lake house." Mi-ro turned in his arms. "We worked hard for this. Our parents left everything behind in Korea, so we could have better lives. Now we can give Han-yul something special." Their daughter's voice interrupted them. "Mom, Dad, come see my room. I already know exactly where I want everything." They climbed the stairs to find Han-yul in the smaller bedroom that faced the side yard. She was standing by the window, pointing out where she wanted her desk, her bed, and her gaming setup. Her eyes sparkled with excitement as she planned. "And I can put my computer right here," she said, gesturing to a corner. "The internet signal is really good. I already checked." Do-hyun ruffled her hair. "Always thinking about technology, just like your old dad." A loud engine noise made them all look out the window. Robert Thatcher was driving his rusty pickup truck past their house, moving deliberately slow. As he passed, he revved the engine hard, making black smoke pour from the exhaust pipe. Han-yul wrinkled her nose. "What's his problem?" Mi-ro put her hands on her daughter's shoulders. "Some people take time to warm up to new neighbors. Let's focus on making our house beautiful." They spent the rest of the morning unpacking and setting up the basics they would need for their weekend stays. Do-hyun assembled beds while Mi-ro organized the kitchen and bathrooms. Han-yul helped both of them, though she spent extra time setting up the Wi-Fi router and making sure all their devices were connected. Around noon, they heard a knock at the door. Do-hyun opened it to find a young police officer in a neat uniform. The officer smiled and bowed slightly, a gesture that surprised and pleased Do-hyun. "Hello, I'm Officer Yong-jin Kim, he said. I patrol this area, and I like to welcome new residents. I saw you moving in this morning. Thank you. I'm Do-hyun Park, Do-hyun replied, shaking the officer's hand. Would you like to come in for some water? It's quite warm today. Officer Kim accepted, and they talked in the kitchen while Mi-rae offered him some of the kimbap she had made for lunch. The officer told them about the area, the best places to buy groceries, which roads to avoid during rush hour, and when the lake was busiest. It's usually very peaceful here, Officer Kim said. Most people are friendly though. He paused, glancing out the window toward Thatcher's house. We met our neighbor briefly, Do-hyun said carefully. Officer Kim nodded slowly. Mr. Thatcher can be difficult. If you have any problems, don't hesitate to call the station. Here's my card. After the officer left, the family ate lunch on the back deck, enjoying the view of the lake. Several boats passed by, and the people on them waved cheerfully. Hyun-yul took pictures of everything with her phone, planning to show her friends at school on Monday. As the afternoon went on, more neighbors stopped by to welcome them. An elderly couple brought homemade cookies, and a family with 2 young children invited Hyun-yul to join their weekly game nights. Each friendly face helped them feel more at home. But every now and then, they would hear Thatcher's truck drive by, engine roaring. Sometimes they caught him standing at the edge of his property, watching their house with that same angry frown. When evening came, they noticed him sitting on his porch, the red glow of his cigarette visible in the growing darkness. After dinner, the family sat in camping chairs on their new dock, watching the stars come out over the lake. The water lapped gently against the wooden posts, creating a peaceful rhythm. This is perfect, Hyun-yul said, leaning her head against her mother's shoulder. I'm glad we got this place. Do-hyun looked at his family, their faces lit by the soft glow of the dock lights he had installed that afternoon. Despite Thatcher's unwelcoming behavior, he felt content. They had worked hard for this house, and they deserved to enjoy it. As they got ready for bed that night, Do-hyun checked all the doors and windows, making sure everything was locked. Through the living room window, he could still see the burning end of Thatcher's cigarette on the neighboring porch. Something about that constant watching made him uneasy, but he pushed the feeling aside. Everything okay? Mi-rae asked when he came to bed. Everything's fine, he assured her. Just doing a safety check. But later that night, as the house creaked and settled around them, Do-hyun lay awake, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of their new lake house. From somewhere outside came the sound of Thatcher's screen door slamming, followed by heavy footsteps on gravel. Then silence, except for the gentle waves of the lake and the distant call of a night bird. Tomorrow would be another day, Do-hyun told himself. Another day to make this place their home, no matter what anyone else thought about it. 2 weeks had passed since the Park family's first weekend at their lake house. They arrived for another Friday stay, looking forward to relaxing by the water. But as Do-hyun turned onto their driveway, he immediately noticed something wrong. Their mailbox lay on the ground, bent and dented, as if someone had hit it with something heavy. Not again, Mi-rae said softly. This wasn't the first problem they had found. Last weekend, their garden lights had been broken, though Do-hyun had tried to convince himself it was just local teenagers playing pranks. Hyun-yul got out of the car and picked up a piece of paper that had fallen from the damaged mailbox. Her face grew serious as she read it. Dad, you should see this. The note was typed in large letters. Go back cake, where you came from. Do-hyun took the paper, his hands shaking slightly. Mi-rae looked over his shoulder and gasped. They all knew who had done this. Every time they had visited their lake house, Robert Thatcher had made his hatred clear. He would rev his truck engine whenever they went outside. He had yelled strange words at them when they tried to swim in the lake. Once, he had even let his dog run loose, barking and growling at Hyun-yul, until she ran inside. I'm calling Officer Kim, Do-hyun said, pulling out his phone. While he talked to the police officer, Mi-rae and Ho Newell went inside to unpack their bags. Officer Yong Jin Kim arrived 20 minutes later. He took pictures of the mailbox and the note, his face growing more serious with each photo. "This is the fourth complaint about Mr. Thatcher this month," he told Do-hyun. "Other families have had problems with him too, but no one has been able to prove he's behind the damage." "What can we do?" Do-hyun asked. "Document everything," Officer Kim advised. "Take pictures, save any notes, record the times when incidents happen. We need evidence to take action." After the officer left, the family tried to enjoy their evening. Miro cooked dinner while Ho Newell worked on her homework at the kitchen table. Do-hyun fixed the mailbox, making it stronger than before. But they all felt uneasy, knowing Thatcher was watching from his porch, smoking his endless cigarettes. Later that night, when her parents were playing cards in the living room, Ho Newell went to her bedroom and opened her laptop. She was tired of feeling scared in their own house. She had ordered some small security cameras online with her saved allowance money, and now she carefully read the instructions for setting them up. Working quietly, she placed one camera near the front door, hiding it behind a potted plant. She put another one under the deck, pointing at the backyard. The third camera went in a tree near their garage. All the cameras connected to her phone, letting her watch what happened around the house. "I'll protect us," she whispered to herself as she checked that all the cameras were working. The next morning, Do-hyun found more trouble. Someone had painted ugly words on their garage door during the night. The paint was still wet, bright red against the white door. Mi-rae cried when she saw it, and Do-hyun felt anger rising in his chest. While they were cleaning the garage, several neighbors came to help. The elderly couple who had brought cookies on their first day came with paint and brushes. The family with the game nights brought cleaning supplies. Even people they hadn't met before stopped by to offer support. "We're so sorry this is happening," said Mrs. Anderson, the elderly woman, as she helped paint over the mean words. "Most people here aren't like Thatcher. He's just a bitter man who never learned to accept change." Ho Newell watched all this from her bedroom window. She checked her phone and saw that her cameras had recorded during the night. The garage camera had caught everything. The video clearly showed Thatcher sneaking onto their property at 3 in the morning, carrying a paint can and brush. She ran downstairs to show her parents, but then stopped. If she told them about the cameras now, they might make her take them down. They always worried about her safety. No, she would wait and collect more evidence first. That afternoon, dark clouds rolled in from the lake. Thunder boomed in the distance, and soon rain was falling hard. The family stayed inside, playing board games and trying to forget about the morning's trouble. But the storm made the house feel smaller, and they could hear Thatcher's truck driving past again and again, even in the rain. During dinner, they heard a crash from outside. Ho Newell quickly checked her phone under the table. The camera under the deck showed Thatcher throwing empty bottles at their back door. She recorded the video but stayed quiet, her heart beating fast. Do-hyun called the police again, but by the time Officer Kim arrived, Thatcher was back in his house. The broken glass had washed away in the rain. Once again, they had no proof. That night, none of them could sleep well. The storm grew stronger, making tree branches scratch against the windows. Every noise made them wonder if Thatcher was outside again. Ho Newell kept checking her phone, watching the camera feeds in the dark of her room. Around midnight, she saw something that made her sit up straight. Thatcher was walking around their garage again, but this time he was carrying something different. In the glow of his cigarette, she could see an old gas can in his hand. Her fingers shook as she saved the video. Tomorrow, she would have to tell her parents about the cameras. This was too dangerous to keep secret any longer. But for now, she sent the video to Officer Kim's email, which she had copied from his card when he wasn't looking. 10 minutes later, police lights flashed through the rain. Ho Newell watched on her phone as Officer Kim caught Thatcher before he could do anything with the gas can. Even through the storm, she could hear Thatcher yelling as the police put him in their car. Down the hall, she heard her parents' door open. They must have seen the lights too. Newell took a deep breath and grabbed her phone. It was time to show them how she had protected their family. But as she walked to her parents' room, she saw more car lights through the windows. More of Thatcher's friends were driving past their house, engines roaring over the storm. Newell clutched her phone tighter. She had helped catch Thatcher, but somehow she knew their troubles weren't over yet. The cameras kept recording through the night, catching every car that drove past, every person that walked near their property. Tomorrow would bring more challenges, but now they had a way to fight back. Newell smiled in the darkness. Sometimes the best weapon against hate was simply showing the truth. The storm grew stronger through the night. Lightning flashed across Lake Monroe, making the dark water glow for brief seconds. Inside the lake house, the Park family sat in their living room, unable to sleep. Officer Kim had taken Robert Thatcher to the police station, but they knew he wouldn't stay there long. Someone had already paid his bail. Newell had finally shown her parents the security cameras and the videos she had collected. Instead of being angry about her secret, they were proud of her quick thinking. Do-hyun hugged his daughter tightly, amazed at how brave and clever she had become. "You did the right thing," Mi-rae told Newell, holding her hand. "But next time, please tell us sooner. We're stronger when we work together." Thunder crashed outside, making them all jump. Through the windows, they could see cars driving slowly past their house. Thatcher's friends were still out there, watching and waiting. The rain made it hard to see clearly, but the security cameras showed at least 3 trucks circling their street. "Maybe we should go back to the city," Mi-rae suggested quietly. "Just until things calm down." Do-hyun shook his head. "No, this is our home too. We worked hard for this house, and we have the right to be here." Newell checked her phone again, watching the camera feeds. "Dad's right. We can't let them scare us away." Suddenly, all the lights in the house went dark. The storm had knocked out the power. Newell's phone screen became their only light in the pitch-black room. Outside, they heard engines revving and people shouting. "The cameras are still working," Newell said, her voice shaking a little. "They'd run on batteries." She turned her phone to show her parents. The night vision mode on the cameras revealed several men walking around their property. One of them was Robert Thatcher. Do-hyun immediately called Officer Kim, keeping his voice low. "They cut our power," he whispered into the phone. "Thatcher is back with his friends. Please hurry." "I'm on my way," Officer Kim replied. "But the storm has blocked some roads with fallen trees. It might take me 20 minutes to reach you. Stay inside and lock everything." Mi-rae was already moving through the house, checking all the doors and windows. The wind howled outside, making the house creak and groan. Through Newell's phone, they watched as Thatcher and his friends tried to open their garage door. "They have gasoline cans," Newell said, her eyes wide as she watched the camera feed. Just like before. Do-hyun looked around the dark room, thinking fast. They needed to protect themselves until help arrived. "Newell," he said, "can you make your phone alert us if anyone gets too close to the house?" Newell nodded, her fingers flying over her phone screen. "I can set up motion alerts. They'll make my phone buzz if someone comes near any door or window." "Good. Mi-rae, help me move the heavy furniture in front of the doors." Together, they pushed the living room couch against the front door. They used dining room chairs to block the back door. Every few minutes, Newell's phone would buzz, showing them where Thatcher and his friends were trying to get in. The storm raged harder, rain pounding against the windows like tiny fists. Lightning flashed again, and they saw shadows moving on their front lawn. Someone was trying to break their living room window. "Upstairs," Do-hyun whispered urgently. "We'll be safer upstairs." They climbed the stairs quietly, moving to Newell's room because it had the best view of both the front and back of the house. Murray carried a heavy baseball bat they kept for protection. Do-hyun had grabbed their emergency flashlight, but they didn't dare turn it on. Han-yul's phone buzzed again. "They're at the garage door," she whispered. "The camera shows them pouring gasoline." Myro called 911, while Do-hyun tried Officer Kim again. The storm was making it hard to get a clear signal. Through the walls, they could hear glass breaking somewhere downstairs. "We need to stop them before they start a fire," Do-hyun said. He looked around Han-yul's room, searching for ideas. His eyes landed on her gaming speakers, the expensive ones she had bought for her computer. "Han-yul, can you play sounds through all our phones at once?" he asked. She nodded slowly, understanding his plan. "I can connect them all to play the same thing, and I can make it really loud." "Good. Myray, get your phone ready too. When I say go, we'll make them think the police are already here." Han-yul quickly connected their phones together using her tech knowledge. She found police siren sounds online and prepared them to play. Do-hyun positioned himself at the window, ready to shine the flashlight like emergency lights. Below them, they could hear heavy footsteps in their kitchen. The intruders were inside their house. Myro gripped the baseball bat tighter, standing near the bedroom door. "Now," Do-hyun whispered. Han-yul pressed play on her phone. Instantly, police sirens blasted from 3 phones at full volume. Do-hyun flashed the emergency light through the windows, making red and blue patterns like police cars. Myray began hitting the baseball bat against the floor, making it sound like many people running. The noise echoed through the house, made even louder by the storm. Through Han-yul's camera feed, they watched Thatcher and his friends panic. The men ran from the garage, dropping their gasoline cans. Some tried to run through the woods, while others rushed to their trucks. "It's working," Han-yul said excitedly. But her smile faded as her phone buzzed with a new alert. "Wait, someone's still in the kitchen." They heard heavy footsteps on the stairs. Someone was coming up, moving slowly in the darkness. Myray raised the baseball bat, ready to protect her family. Do-hyun moved in front of Han-yul, shielding her with his body. Lightning flashed again, lighting up the hallway through the bedroom door. In that bright second, they saw Robert Thatcher standing there, his face twisted with anger and fear. He was holding something in his hands, the matches they had seen on the camera. But before anyone could move, real police lights began flashing outside. Officer Kim had finally arrived, and he wasn't alone. Through the storm's noise, they could hear police sirens getting closer. Thatcher looked at the Park family, then at the window where red and blue lights were growing brighter. For a moment, he stood frozen, realizing he was trapped. Then he turned and ran down the stairs. He didn't get far. Officer Kim and 2 other police officers caught him trying to escape through the broken kitchen window. This time, there would be no quick bail. The gasoline cans had his fingerprints all over them, and Han-yul's cameras had recorded everything. As the police led Thatcher away in handcuffs, the storm began to calm. The power came back on, filling their house with light again. The Park family hugged each other tightly, grateful they were safe. "We did it," Han-yul whispered, still holding her phone with its precious videos. "We protected our home." Do-hyun looked at his wife and daughter with pride. They had faced hatred and fear, but they had faced it together. And they had won using their brains, not violence. Outside, their neighbors were arriving, drawn by the police lights. This time, no one stayed quiet or looked away. They came forward to tell the police about all the times they had seen Thatcher causing trouble. The wall of silence that had protected him was finally breaking down. The night's darkness was fading, and soon the sun would rise over Lake Monroe. The storm had passed, but the Park family knew their fight wasn't over. There would be police statements to make and court dates to attend. Yet somehow, none of that seemed as frightening anymore. They had stood their ground and protected their home. Together, They could face whatever came next. The morning after the storm brought bright sunshine to Lake Monroe. Police cars still parked outside the Park family's lake house, their lights now off. Inside, Do-hyun sat at the kitchen table with Officer Kim, showing him all the videos Ho-nyul's cameras had captured. Mi-rae made coffee for everyone, while Ho-nyul helped clean up the mess from the break-in. "These videos are exactly what we needed," Officer Kim said, watching the clear footage of Thatcher and his friends trying to burn down the garage. "With this evidence, Mr. Thatcher will face serious charges. Attempted arson, breaking and entering, hate crimes. He won't get away this time." Do-hyun looked at the broken glass on their kitchen floor. "What about his friends? The ones who helped him?" "We caught 3 of them already," Officer Kim explained. "The storm knocked down a tree on the main road, blocking their escape. The others turned themselves in this morning. They're all afraid of getting the same charges as Thatcher." Ho-nyul walked into the kitchen, carrying her laptop. "Dad, you should see this," she said. "The neighbors are all outside." The family moved to the front window. A large group of people stood on their lawn, carrying brooms, trash bags, and cleaning supplies. Mrs. Anderson, the elderly neighbor who had brought them cookies, was organizing everyone into groups. Some people were picking up broken glass, while others repaired the damaged window frames. "They want to help fix the house," Officer Kim said with a smile. "The whole community is upset about what happened. Nobody wants hate in their neighborhood." Mi-rae wiped tears from her eyes as she watched their neighbors work. "We should help them," she said. "This is what community really means." The family went outside to join their neighbors. As they worked together to repair the damage, more people arrived. Someone brought coffee and donuts for everyone. Children helped pick up smaller pieces of broken glass, wearing thick gloves their parents had brought. Even people from other streets came to help, having heard about the incident. Around noon, a news van arrived. A reporter wanted to interview the Park family about what had happened. At first, Do-hyun wasn't sure about talking to the media. But Ho-nyul convinced him it was important to share their story. "If we stay quiet, people like Thatcher win," she said wisely. "Maybe our story will help other families stand up against hate." The reporter listened carefully as they explained everything that had happened. Ho-nyul showed her the security camera setup, proud of how her quick thinking had helped protect her family. The reporter was especially impressed by how the family had used their skills. Ho-nyul's technology knowledge, Do-hyun's calm leadership, and Mi-rae's brave protection to defend themselves without violence. "You turned fear into strength," the reporter said. "That's a powerful message." While the interview continued, more neighbors shared their own stories about Thatcher. Some had been afraid to speak up before, worried about making things worse. But now they found courage in each other. Each story showed how one angry person had affected so many lives. Officer Kim returned in the afternoon with more news. "The judge denied bail for Mr. Thatcher this time," he told them. "He'll stay in jail until his trial. His friends are all cooperating with our investigation, trying to get lighter sentences." The family felt relief at this news, but they also felt something else, a sense of purpose. Their fight against hatred had brought their community together in unexpected ways. People who had never spoken to each other before were now working side by side, sharing stories and making plans to prevent anything like this from happening again. As the day went on, the damage to their house was slowly repaired. Neighbors replaced broken windows, fixed damaged doors, and cleaned away all signs of the attack. Someone even brought paint to cover the ugly words that had been sprayed on their garage. Ho-nyul spent time teaching other kids in the neighborhood about her security camera setup. "Technology can protect people," she explained, showing them how the cameras worked. "But the most important protection is having neighbors who care about each other." Inside the house, Mi-rae organized a list of everyone who had helped, planning to invite them all to a thank-you dinner once everything settled down. Do-hyun worked with some neighbors to install better outdoor lights and security systems, not just for their house, but for anyone who wanted them. Late in the afternoon, Mrs. Anderson brought over a large pot of soup for the family. "You must be exhausted," she said kindly. "But you should know something. You've changed this neighborhood. Before, we all stayed in our own houses, pretending not to see the problems. Now, we're really becoming a community." As the sun began to set over Lake Monroe, the Park family stood on their deck, looking at their house. It was different now, stronger, safer, and filled with the energy of people who cared. The broken windows were fixed, the garage door was clean, and new security lights shone brightly around the property. "Should we go back to the city?" Mireille asked, but she was smiling as she said it. She already knew the answer. "This is our home," Du-hyun said firmly, "now more than ever." Hanul nodded, holding up her phone to show the security camera feeds. All was quiet and peaceful. "Besides," she added, "I think the neighborhood needs us. We can help make it better for everyone." Inside the house, the kitchen table was covered with plates of food that neighbors had brought. Cards and notes of support filled their mailbox. Their new, stronger mailbox that the community had helped install. Every room held evidence of how their neighbors had come together to help them. As night fell, the family sat together in their living room, feeling tired but proud. They had faced hatred and fear, but they had also discovered strength they didn't know they had. More importantly, they had helped their community find its voice. "Tomorrow will be better," Du-hyun said, hugging his wife and daughter. "And the day after that will be even better." Hanul's phone buzzed with a new message. It was from the neighbor's kids, asking if she could teach them more about technology tomorrow. Mireille had messages too. Other families wanting to organize a neighborhood watch program. Du-hyun's phone showed emails from people offering to help make their community safer and more welcoming. The attack that was meant to drive them away had instead made them an important part of their community. As they prepared for bed that night, they knew things would never be the same at Lake Monroe. Change had come, not through hatred and fear, but through courage, unity, and the simple act of neighbors helping neighbors. 3 months had passed since the night of the storm. The maple trees around Lake Monroe were turning bright orange and red as autumn arrived. The Park family drove to their lake house every weekend now, no longer feeling afraid. Their home had become a symbol of positive change in the community. This Saturday morning was special. Du-hyun and Mireille were preparing for a large neighborhood gathering they had organized. Hanul helped set up tables and chairs on their back deck, which now extended all the way to the lake. The deck was Du-hyun's latest project. He and several neighbors had worked together to build it over the past month. "The food tables should go here," Mireille said, directing some neighbors who had come early to help. She had prepared traditional Korean dishes to share, while others were bringing their own family favorites. The air was filled with wonderful smells from different cuisines. Hanul checked her phone out of habit, but the security camera feeds showed only friends arriving with covered dishes and excited children. These days, she used her cameras to help organize neighborhood events more than for security. She had even started teaching a weekend technology class for kids at the local library. "Officer Kim is here," she called out, seeing the familiar police car pull up. The young officer had become a good friend to the family. He wasn't in uniform today. This was his day off, and he was just another neighbor joining the celebration. "The judge made the final decision yesterday," Officer Kim told Du-hyun as they set up a drinks table. "Thatcher will serve 5 years in prison, and after that, he can't come within a mile of this neighborhood. His friends got shorter sentences because they cooperated, but they'll all have to take cultural awareness classes and do community service." Do-hyun nodded, feeling not happy exactly, but satisfied that justice had been done. "Have you heard from his daughter?" he asked. "Yes," Officer Kim smiled. "She's still working to turn his house into a community center. She said she wants to transform a place that spread hate into one that brings people together." More guests arrived as the morning went on. Mrs. Anderson came with her famous apple pies. The family that had first invited O'Neill to game nights brought their gaming console to set up outdoor video games for the kids. People from all over the lake community showed up, carrying food, chairs, and warm smiles. Myra had tears in her eyes as she watched everyone gather. "Look at all these people," she said to Do-hyun. "Remember when we thought we might have to leave?" Do-hyun hugged her close. "Now we're helping build something new here, something better." The gathering was more than just a party. It was the first meeting of the Lake Monroe Community Association, which the parks had helped create. The association would work to make the neighborhood safer and more welcoming for everyone. They had plans for cultural festivals, neighborhood watch programs, and youth activities. O'Neill stood up to give a speech she had prepared. At first, she felt nervous looking at all the faces, but then she saw how everyone was smiling encouragingly. These weren't just neighbors anymore, they were friends. 3 months ago, someone tried to burn down our house because we were different, she began. But that attempt to destroy brought us all together instead. Now we're building something stronger than any one family or house. We're building a real community. People clapped and cheered. Then others stood up to share their own stories. A family from Vietnam talked about how the neighborhood had welcomed them after hearing what happened to the parks. An elderly couple told everyone about the teenagers who now helped them with yard work. A single mother described how neighbors took turns watching her children while she worked. The gathering lasted all day. Children played games on the new deck, while adults talked and shared food. Some people went swimming in the lake, while others took walks along the shore. Music played softly in the background, a mix of songs from different cultures that O'Neill had helped create. As the sun began to set, Do-hyun noticed something remarkable. Where Thatcher's house had once stood dark and unwelcoming, there were now lights and signs of construction. Volunteers were already working to transform it into the new community center. The plans included a library, meeting rooms, and a coffee shop where neighbors could gather. "It's like the whole lake is different now," Myra said, following his gaze. "Not just our little part of it." O'Neill joined her parents at the deck railing. "Remember how scared we were that first weekend? Now look at us. We're not just living here, we're helping make it better." Below them, children from different families played together on the beach. Parents chatted in mixed groups, sharing stories and making plans for future events. Officer Kim was teaching some kids how to fish off the dock. The evening air was filled with laughter and friendly conversation in many languages. As darkness fell, someone started a campfire on the beach. People gathered around it, roasting marshmallows and telling stories. The flames lit up happy faces as neighbors who had once been strangers now sat together like old friends. Do-hyun looked at his family in the firelight. O'Neill was teaching other kids how to take good photos with their phones. Myra was sharing her recipe for kimchi with interested neighbors. Both of them looked so comfortable, so at home. He remembered their first day at the lake house, when Thatcher had made them feel unwelcome. That seemed like a different world now. They had faced hatred not by hating back, but by bringing people together. They had turned fear into friendship, isolation into community. Later that night, after the guests had gone home and the family was cleaning up, O'Neill found a stack of notes that people had left. They were filled with thanks for bringing the community together, for standing strong, for helping others find their courage. "We should frame these," Myra suggested, reading the heartfelt messages. "Put them next to the security cameras," O'Neill joked, making her parents laugh. Do-hyun picked up a note written by Mrs. Anderson. It said simply, "You didn't just save your house that night. You helped save our community's soul." The family stood together on their deck one last time before bed, looking out over the peaceful lake. Stars reflected on the dark water, and crickets sang in the warm night air. This was more than just their weekend house now. It was a home in the truest sense, a place where they belonged, surrounded by people who cared. Next weekend, Ho Newell said sleepily, we should teach everyone how to make Korean barbecue. Next weekend, Myra agreed, and many weekends after that. Do-hyun smiled, holding his family close. They had turned darkness into light, hatred into hope. And they had learned the greatest lesson of all, that the strongest house isn't built with wood and nails, but with love, courage, and the bonds of true community.